Hello and welcome to our new YouTube tutorial. In this video we're going to build a sidebar menu for admin dashboard. These kinds of sidebars are very popular today, so I think this little project will be interesting and helpful for you. The project will be built based on HTML, CSS and JavaScript, so it would be good if you know at least the basics of those technologies. Before we start to build our project, I'm going to go through and describe it. So as you see, we have here a full screen background image, and at the top left corner we have a menu icon. If I click it, then those lines will be changed to X with some nice transition, and also the sidebar will display from left to right. As you can see, the sidebar consists of a couple of different parts. At the top of it we have an avatar for admin with the full name and the subtitle administrator. It is followed by the search bar. Then we have a list with font awesome icons. Each of the list items has its own sub-menu. They are represented as the drop-down menus. And finally, at the bottom of the sidebar, we have a couple of icons. If I click the X button, then the sidebar will close. Actually, the project will be responsive to all different screen sizes. We're going to build it for larger screen size. I mean, screen size with 1920 pixels of width and 1080 pixels of height. So if you're following us with a relatively smaller screen size, then I recommend to open up the developer tools, switch to the responsive mode and set the width and height to 1920 pixels and 1080 pixels. But anyway, at the end of the day we will make the project responsive. Okay, that's what we're going to build in this video, so let's get started. I have created a folder on the desktop called Sidebar, in which I have another folder for the images. Let's go ahead and open up the folder in VS Code. The first thing that I'm going to do is to create our working files. Overall we will have 3 different files: index.html, style.css, and also script.js. Then open index.html file and insert here the basic HTML document. For that I'm going to use emmet. Let's place here an exclamation mark and hit enter or maybe tab. Let's change the title. I'm going to insert here sidebar, and also I'm going to link CSS and JavaScript files. For that, let's open link tag. Indicate here the file name style.css. Then down below open up script tag, and in the source attribute specify the name of the file script.js. Besides that, we need 2 other links, one for the font awesome icons and another one for the Google fonts. So let's go ahead and search for font awesome CDN.js. Then grab the first link from here and paste it in the head element. After that, I'm going to search for the Google fonts. Actually, we will use 2 different fonts. The first one is going to be Roboto Slab. I'm going to customize it because we're going to use a little bit bolder font weight. So let's check the semi-bold font. As for the second one, we will use Slabo 27. Let's grab the link and paste it in the head element as well. Okay, that's it about the setup. Lastly, I'm going to run the file in the browser. For that, I'm going to use LiveServer. This is one of the VS Code packages. Actually, we use this package almost always, but anyway, I'm going to remind you that it allows us to run the project live in the browser and make updates without refreshing the page each time. So you can download and install it. Finally, let's organize our working environment. I'm going to place text editor and a browser like so, to make our working process more convenient. Okay, let's go ahead and start to create the HTML markup. Let's open a div element, which is going to be a container. Next, we need to open nav elements, which will wrap the entire sidebar. So let's assign to it class name sidebar. As we said, the sidebar will consist of a couple of different parts. The first one is going to be a menu icon. So let's open the div elements with the class name Hamburger Menu. The menu icon will consist of 3 lines. So I'm going to pass here div elements with classes, line, which will be the common class name for all 3 lines, and also we need line 1 for individual styling. Let's duplicate the line twice and change the class names. We need line 2 and line 3. Alright, that's it about the menu icon. Next, we need to create a card which will include the avatar of the admin, full name, and the subtitle administrator. So let's open a div element with the class name card. Next, we need another div which will wrap the image of the admin. Let's assign to it class name card img. Then insert here the image element. I'm going to write in the alt attribute admin image. Then let's specify the path of the image in the source attribute. It's going to be images folder /admin.jpg. And finally, use here class attribute with the value admin image. Okay, so we have here the image. Let's go ahead and insert the full name and subtitle. I'm going to open another div element with the class name card body. Then insert h2 heading element in it with the class card title. And as the content, write the full name John Smith. Next, we need paragraph, which should have a class name card subtitle. And as the content, let's insert here the administrator. Okay, that's it about the card. Next comes the search input field. So let's open a form element with a class name search form. So overall we will have 2 elements. The first one is going to be input with a type of text. Also we need a class search input and the placeholder attribute with value search. Okay. Besides the input element, we need also a button which will represent the search icon. So let's open the button element. It should have the type of button because when the button element is placed inside the form, then by default it reloads the page on every click. So in order to avoid it, we have to use the type of button. Also we need here class name search button. Okay. So the search icon will be represented by the font awesome icon. So let's insert here I element with classes FAS FA-search. Alright, so that's it about the form elements. Next we need to take care of the list. So let's go ahead and open the UL element with the class name navList. So this is going to be the main list on the sidebar. It will have 5 different list items, each of them with its own drop-down menu. So let's open the LI elements with the class name navItem. Then it should be followed by the link with the class navLink. So I'm going to insert here 3 different elements. The first one is going to be the font awesome icon with the class names FAS, FA-tachometer-alt. Next we need a span element with the class nav link text. Then as the content, let's insert here dashboard. And finally we need again the font awesome icon to display the arrow. So it should have classes FAS, FA-angle-right. Alright, that's it about the first list item. As we said, overall we need 5 of them, so I'm going to duplicate it 4 times and then change the class names and also the content of the items. The second one is going to be FAS, FA shopping cart, e-commerce. Next one will be FAR, FA jam, with the item components. Next we have FAS, FA chart line, charts. And finally we need FAS, FA map, marker, alt, with the item maps. Alright, so that's it about the main list. Now we need to create a drop-down menu for each list item. So I'm going to insert a new list right before the closing li tag. It should have class sub-nav-list. So the first drop-down menu will consist of 3 different list items. Let's open the first li element with the class name sub-nav-item. Next we need a link element with the class sub-nav-link. So each list item will include the font awesome icon and the content represented by a span element. So let's insert here I element with the classes FAR, FA-circle. It should be followed by the span with the text dashboard 1. Let's go ahead and duplicate li element twice and just change the content. We need dashboard 2 and dashboard 3. So here we have the first drop-down menu. We need it for the rest of the items as well. So let's go ahead and grab it and paste it before the closing li tags. Then go ahead and change the content for all of the menu items. We need here products, orders, and credit card. Next we need general, icons, and tables. Next we need pie chart, line chart, and bar chart. For the last drop-down menu, we just need 2 items. So I'm going to leave here just 2 items with the following content. We need Google Maps and OpenStreetMap. Okay, so as you can see, we are done with the main list. Next we have to take care of the bottom list. So let's open again list elements with the class bottom list. So the list will include 4 different icons. Therefore, we need 4 list items. Let's open li element, which should have class name bottom list item. Then we need link element with the class name bottom list link. So each of the list items will have an icon and also some notifications. Therefore, I'm going to insert the span element with some number, let's say 5. And also we need a font awesome icon. It should be FAS FA-bell. Let's duplicate list item 3 times. Then change the number of the notifications and also the class names. For the second one, I'm going to insert here 7. As for the class name, we need FAS FA-envelope. For the next one, we need 1. And the class name FAS FA-cog. For the last item, I'm going to get rid of the notification at all. Just leave here font awesome icon with classes FAS FA-power-off. Alright, so that's it about the sidebar. We are almost done with the HTML markup. The only thing that we have to do is to take care of the main section, in which actually we will have just the heading with the full screen background image. So right after the nav element, let's open this section and assign to it class name main section. Then inside it we need a header element with the class header. So inside the header we will have just a single heading with the class name heading and with the text dashboard. Alright, so finally we are done with the HTML markup. All the needed elements are created and now it's time to write some CSS. Let's open style.css file and first of all create some reset and actually common styles. Let's select all the elements using an asterisk. So I'm going to reset margin and padding. Let's set both of them to 0. Also, we have lots of list items and links, so I'm going to get rid of their default styles with list style none and text decoration none. After that, let's define the font family for every element. I'm going to use font called Slabo 27 pixels, serif, and finally let's get rid of the default outline. Alright, that's it about the common styles. Throughout the project we're going to use rem as the measurement unit. By default 1 rem equals to 16 pixels because the font size of HTML equals to 16 pixels. Actually, I want to convert 1 rem into 10 pixels because I think it's more convenient and easier to calculate. So in order to achieve that, we have to decrease the font size of the HTML and make it 62.5%. Now the font size of HTML equals to 10 pixels. Therefore, 1 rem is equal to 10 pixels as well. Alright. Throughout this project, we're going to use different colors for several times. And actually, in order to make this process more dynamic, I'm going to use CSS Variables. We will store the color values in CSS Variables, and we will use those variable names. So in order to create the variables for global scope, we need to select root. And then we need to define variable names with the proper values. The first one is going to be main BG color, I mean background color. So it should be 2E, 2E, 2E. Then I'm going to duplicate this line of code for a couple of times and change the names and the values. Second one is going to be primary color with the color value 524 D4D. Next one is going to be secondary color with the value 777171. Then we will have text color 9C9393. Also we need hover text color with the value BD B8 B8. And the last one is going to be active icon color with the value 2A E7E7. Alright, now I'm going to show you how to use those colors. Suppose that we want to change the background color for the body. We need to select body. Then we need to assign to it background color. Now we have to use var function, which stands for variable. And inside the parentheses we have to specify the name of the variable. Let's say main background color. Main BG color. So as you can see, background of the body element is changed. So that's the way how CSS variables work. Okay, let's get rid of this code because we don't need it anymore. Let's go ahead and add some styles to the sidebar. I'm going to select it. Let's define its width and height. Actually, as the measurement unit, I'm going to use viewport width. Let's set the width of the sidebar as 15% of the viewport. So we need 15 VW. As for the height, I'm going to make it 100% of the viewport. So we need 100 VH. Then change the background color. Use here main BG color. And also I'm going to make the position of the sidebar fixed. Alright, so now the sidebar is visible, and actually I think that the image is quite big, and I'm going to decrease its size from the HTML right now. At the end of the day we will take care of the image from CSS. Let's go to index.html file and assign to image attribute called width with value 50. It means that we set the width of the image to 50 pixels. Okay, the next thing that I want to do is to take care of the main section. The second part of the page, which is placed down below after the navigation. Let's go ahead and select it. So the main section should take up the rest of the page, the right side. Therefore, I'm going to define its width as 85 viewport width. Also, we need to define its position because the sidebar and the main section should be placed side by side. So let's make it position relative. And then set left property to 15 viewport width. Now as you can see, the text dashboard is visible. It means that those two parts are placed side by side. Okay, let's define the full screen background for the header. Let's select it. First of all, let's define its width and height. I'm going to inherit width from the parent element. So let's assign to width property inherit. As for the height, let's make it 100% of the viewport. And finally, let's define the background. I'm going to use here linear gradient with white colors but with different opacity. The first color should have the opacity 0.3. As for the second one, it's going to be 0.5. Next, we need to specify the URL. We have folder called images, and we need to select bg.png. Next, we need center, no repeat. And finally, we have to define the size of the background as cover. Alright, so now as you can see, the image is set as the full screen background, and the only thing that we have to do is to take care of the heading element. So let's go ahead and select it. I'm going to place it in the center. For that, let's define its position as absolute. Then set top position to 5%. Then we need left 50%. And lastly, we need to use transform with the translate function. In order to center the element perfectly, we need here translate x, because we have to move the element according to x-axis, and as the value we have to pass here minus 50%. Alright, so the heading is centered, and now I'm going to make it look better. Let's go ahead and increase its font size, make it 12 rem, change the color, make it white, and finally create some space between letters. Use letter spacing with value 1 rem. Alright, that's it about the main section. Now we have to return to the sidebar. Let's go ahead and create some space inside the box using padding. I'm going to set padding to 1.5 rem on top and bottom, and 1 rem on left and right sides. And also, in order to maintain the same size of the box, we need to use BoxSizing with value border box. Alright, so the sidebar consists of several parts, and I'm going to start with a card in which we have an image, title and subtitle. Let's select a card and make it flex container. For that we need display flex. Now I'm going to take care of the image. As you know, we define its width from the HTML, and actually I'm going to get rid of it. Then select the image with class name admin image. Define its width as 5 rems. And also I'm going to make it slightly rounded using border radius with the value 0.5 rem. Alright, that's it about the image. Let's move on and select card body, which actually includes the full name and the subtitle. So I'm going to create some space on the left side using margin. Let's assign to it 1 rem. Next, I'm going to use again flexbox to align those two elements. Let's make card body flex container using display flex. Then we need to change the direction. We need column. And in order to make some space between the items, we need justify content, space around. Okay, so the full name and subtitle are aligned. Let's go ahead and make them look better. I'm going to start with the card title, so let's select it. Change the font size, make it 2 rem. Also, we need some space on the right side. Let's create it using margin right, 3 rems. Then change the color. Use here text color. And finally use letter spacing with value 0.1 rem. So with the title we are done, and finally let's take care of the subtitle. Select it. Change the font size, make it 1.8 rem. And also change the color. I'm going to use here secondary color. Alright, that's it about the card. All the elements look good. And next comes the search input field. So let's go ahead and take care of it. Let's select the form element. It has class name search form. At first, I'm going to make some space using margin. Let's set margin to 2 rem on top, 0 on the right side, 1 rem at the bottom, and 0 on the left side. Then, in order to align the input and button in the right way, let's make the form element flex container using display flex, and also center the items vertically using align items center. Alright, let's go ahead and style both elements. I'm going to start with the input, so let's select it and define its width and height. I'm going to set width to 100%. As for the height, let's make it 4 rems. And change background color. Use here primary color. Alright, let's go ahead and add some more styles to the input. I'm going to get rid of the default border using border none. Also, make input rounded, use border radius with value 0.5 rem. Next, let's make some space inside of the input using padding. I'm going to set it to 0 on top and bottom and 1 rem on the right and left sides. Then increase the font size, make it 1.6 rem. Change the color, use here text color. And finally create some space between letters using letter spacing 0.1 rem. Alright, so as you can see, the input looks good and we are done with it. Next we have to take care of the search icon. I'm going to place it inside the input, I mean in the right corner of it. So let's go ahead and select the search button. First of all, let's get rid of its default styles. I'm going to make background color transparent and also get rid of default border with border none. Now, in order to move the icon to the left side, I'm going to use transform with the translate X function. Let's insert here minus 150%. Okay, so the icon is placed in the right way and the only thing that we have to do is to style the eye element. So let's go ahead and select it. I'm going to increase its size with font size. Let's make it 2 rems. And also change the color. Use here secondary color. Alright, that's it about the form element. Now we have to move on and start to work on the list. Let's go ahead and select the main list with the class name navList. I'm going to create the space at the top using margin. Let's make it 3 rems. Then select li element and create some space at the top and bottom using margin. Assign to 2 rems and then 0 on the left and right sides. Alright, that's it about the li element. Now it's time to customize the link. Let's go ahead and select it. I'm going to set its width as 100%. Then make it flex container using display flex. Also Let's center items vertically using align items center. And finally, change the color. Let's use here text color. Okay, step by step we are moving forward. Right now the items are quite smaller because their size is just 10 pixels. So let's go ahead and select this span element, which has class name navlink text. I'm going to increase the font size. Let's make it 1.8 rem, and also create some space on the left side using padding left 1 rem. As you can see, the arrows and the items are placed too close to each other. We have to move the arrows to the right side. Actually, we can do that using a couple of different ways, but the best way for us is to use one of the flexbox properties called flex grow, which should be equal to 1. Using this property, the element will take up all the available space inside the flex container. Alright, let's go ahead and take care of the font awesome icons, which are placed in front of the items. So let's select them. We need to select navlink followed by I element, and we have to use one of the CSS pseudo classes called first child. Let's set width and height, both of them to 2 rems, and also change the background color. I'm going to use here primary color. Okay, as you can see, we need to center the icons inside the box. For that, let's use flexbox. We need display flex. And then we need to center the element horizontally and vertically as well. So let's use justify content center and align items center. Alright, now as you can see, the icons are centered perfectly. The only thing that I want to do is to create some space inside the box and also make them rounded. So let's use padding with the value 0.2 rem and border radius with value 0.3 rem. Okay, after that, let's create a little hover effect. When we hover over the item, I want to change the color of the icon. So let's select it. We need navlink, hover, then again I element with the first child pseudo class. Let's change the color, make it active icon color. And also use transition to make the effect smoother. We need to pass here color with the duration 0.2 seconds. Okay, so if we hover over the items, then they will change their color. Lastly, I want to take care of the arrows. I'm going to move them to the left and also increase their size. So let's select them. We need again navlink, then I element, followed by the pseudo class called last child. Let's create some space on the right side using margin right 2.5 rem, and also increase the font size, make it 1.6 rem. Alright, so with the main list items we are done, and now we have to take care of the drop-down menus. At first, let's style them. Select the list elements using class name subNavList. Let's define width, make it 90%, and also place the items to the right side using margin left with value auto. Okay, next I'm going to create some space between the items, so let's select LI elements using class name subNavItem. I'm going to define margin as 0.5 rem on top and bottom and 0 on left and right sides. Next, we need to take care of the link element. So let's go ahead and select it. Change the font size. I'm going to make it 1.5 rem. And also change the color. Use here text color. Okay, so the items look much better, and next I'm going to create the hover effect. On hover, I want to change the color of the items. So let's select link with the hover. Then change the color. Let's use here hover text color. And also we need a transition with color and with the duration 0.2 seconds. Alright, so with drop down items we are almost done. We just need to add a couple of stars to the circles. So let's go ahead and select eye element. We need subNavLink eye. Then change the font size. Make it 1 rem. Also create some space on the right side using margin with value 0.5 rem. Next we need to create hover effect. Let's select link with hover followed by the eye element and change the color. Use here active icon color. Lastly, we need again transition with the color and with the duration 0.2 seconds. Alright, so that's it about the list. They are styled, look good, and now we have to move on and customize the last part of the sidebar, which is a bottom list. So let's go ahead and select UL element. It has class name bottom list. First of all, let's define its width. I'm going to make it 100% and also change the background color. Use here color primary color. Okay, so the list should be placed at the bottom of the sidebar. Therefore, we need to define its position. I'm going to make it absolute. And then in order to place it at the bottom, we have to set a bottom property to 0. Alright, so the list is positioned in the right way. Next I'm going to create some space inside the box, and also we need to place the items in a row horizontally. So we need padding on top and bottom 0.5 rem and 0 on left and right sides. Next we have to use flexbox. We need display flex. And also in order to create some space between the flex items, let's use justify content with the value space around. Okay, so the items are aligned nicely, but as you can see we have some space on the left side of the list. So I'm going to move the entire list to the left side. For that, let's use transform with the translate x function, and as the value let's pass in -1 rem. Alright, so that's it about the alignment of the list. Now I'm going to customize the icons and also the span elements which are created for the notifications. So let's go ahead and start with the icons. Select bottom list link, followed by the eye element. Let's increase font size, make it 1.6 rem, and also change the color. Use here secondary color. Now the icons look much better. I'm going to add here a little hover effect. I want to change the color of the icons on hover, so let's select link with hover and then eye element. Change the color, use here active icon color, and also use transition with the color and with duration 0.3 seconds. Okay, so if we hover over the icons, then they will change the color. So actually with icons we're done. Now I'm going to take care of the span elements. So let's go ahead and select them using bottom list link span. First of all, I'm going to change the font family. Let's use here font called Roboto Slab Serif. Also, I'm going to increase the font weight because I want to make span a little bit bolder. Use here 600. Then change the font size, make it 1 rem, and finally change the color, make it white. Alright, so those numbers should be placed at the top right corners of the icons. So let's go ahead and take care of their position. I'm going to make it absolute. Then, in order to define the position according to the parent element, which in our case is a link, we have to make the parent's position relative. So let's go ahead and select link itself and assign to it position relative. After that, let's define the top and right properties. Make top position minus 100%. As for the right position, let's make it minus 50%. Alright, so the span elements are positioned, and now I want to create different background for each of the notification. For that, let's define width and height properties. I'm going to make both of them 1.4 rem and also add here some temporary background color, let's say red. So now we need to make those backgrounds rounded, and also I want to place those numbers in the center. In order to make them rounded, let's use border radius with value 50%. As for the centering, the numbers, use Flexbox. We need display flags, and then justify content center and align items center. Alright, actually we are almost done with the notifications. The only thing that we have to do is to change the background color and make it different for each item. So let's get rid of the red background. Then, in order to select the items separately, I'm going to use nth child selector, which is a pseudo class. So let's select bottom list item followed by the nth child. Actually, this is a function, so inside the parentheses as the argument I'm going to insert the number of the item 1, and then it should be followed by span. As the background color, I'm going to use CFA 012. Let's duplicate this code twice. Change the number, we need here 2. As the color, let's use 54B154. As for the third item, we need color E22727. Alright, so that's it with the design. Finally, we are done. Next, we have to take care of the functionality, and first of all, I'm going to work on the Hamburger menu. Let's go ahead and add some styles to the menu icon. For now, it's not visible, so let's select it. The first thing that we have to do is to make it visible. So let's define width and height. Make both of them 3.5 rem. and also change the color, I mean the background color, make it white. As you can see, by default it is placed at the top left corner, and right now we need to place it at the top right corner. So let's define its position and make it absolute, and then set right and top positions, both of them to 0. Okay, so the icon is placed in the right way. Next I'm going to display the lines. So let's select them with the common class name line. Define width and height. I'm going to set width to 2.5 rams. As for the height, let's make it 0.3 ram. And also change the background color. In this case, I'm going to use secondary color. Alright, as you see, lines are already visible, but right now they are placed too close to each other. We need some space between them, and also we have to place them in the center of the box. In order to do that, I'm not going to use flexbox. I want to do the same using positions. So let's assign to line position absolute. Then I'm going to select each of the lines separately. Let's start with line 1. Make its top position 1.2 ram. Then I'm going to duplicate it twice. We need here line 2. As for the top position, let's make it 1.8 ram. As for the third line, we need top position 2.4 ram. As you can see, now we have space between the lines, and in order to center them, I'm going to use padding. Actually, the size of the space equals to 1 ram because the width of the icon is 3.5 ram and the width of the line is 2.5 ram. So in order to make lines perfectly centered, we have to set padding to 0.5 ram. Right now the size of the box is increased, and in order to fix that we have to use BoxSizing border box. And finally get rid of white background color. Alright, so the menu icon is designed, and now we have to make it work. I mean, when we click it, we need to transform it into X. For better demonstration, I want to define some styles for all 3 lines separately. I mean, we will overwrite the current styles, but eventually we will use a new class which will be added using JavaScript on click event. Alright, let's write the code and it will become much more clear. Let's select again line 1. So the line 1 and line 3 will exchange their places, and after that they will rotate. As for the line 2, it will hide. So for the line 1 we need to define the position top as 2.4 ram. Then we need transform with the rotate function and with the value -40 degrees. Then select line 2 and assign to it opacity 0. As for the line 3, I'm going to copy this code and change the class name. We need line 3. Also we need top position as 1.2 ram. As for the rotation, we need here 40 degrees without the minus sign. So as you can see, lines are rotated, but we don't have here the X. We have to adjust the positions using the translate function. But before that, we have to change the origin of the transformation. By default, lines are rotated according to the center, and in our case we need to make the origin of the transformation left. So let's assign to the line transform origin, make it left. Then down below use the translate function. For the first line we need translate Y with the value 0.3 ram. As for the third line, we need the same, but with -0.3 rams. Alright, so now we have the perfect X, and actually it's time to make the icon work. As we said, we need to add a new class, and then using toggle method, we have to add and remove this class on each click. So let's add to all 3 lines a new class, let's say change. Then open the JavaScript file. I'm going to select the menu icon. For that, let's use query selector method. Inside the parentheses, we have to specify the class name, which is Hamburger Menu. Then attach to it event listener. Then pass here click event, followed by the arrow function. So we have to add and remove class change to the container because we need to manipulate the sidebar and main section as well. So let's select container using again query selector method. Specify here the class name container. Then we need to use class list property, which actually stores all the classes of the container. And now we need to use the toggle method, which adds the class if it doesn't exist and removes the class if it exists. We need to specify here the class name change inside the parentheses. So if I click the icon, we will get X, and if I click again, we will get back all 3 lines. Right now lines are rotating without any smooth transition, so we need to take care of it. Let's add to the first and third lines transition. So first of all, we need to move line 1 and line 3. I mean, we have to change the top positions for both of the lines. And once this is done, then we need to rotate the lines. So we need top position with the duration 0.3 seconds. After that, we need transform with the same duration, but also with the delay. Alright, now if I click, then we will get a nice smooth transition. Actually, when we click again the icon, then the transition is not working because right now the change class is removed. So we need the same transition for the second click as well. And in order to do that, we have to assign it to the line, which is a common class name for all 3 lines. This transition will be slightly different because on the second click we need delay for the top property and not for the transform. So we need here transform with the duration 0.3 seconds, then top position with the duration 0.3 seconds, and then we need delay 0.3 seconds as well. Also, we need to specify here the opacity for the second line with the duration 0.2 seconds. Alright, so as you can see, everything works perfectly. Okay, the next thing that we have to do is to move the sidebar. By default, we need to hide it, and then once we click the icon, we need to display it back. Besides that, we have to change the width of the main section dynamically. I mean, we have to change its width according to the movement of the sidebar. Alright, let's go ahead and define the left position for the sidebar. We have to make it minus 15 viewport width. So as you can see, sidebar is hidden. Now we need to increase the width of the main section. Let's make it 100 viewport width. And also make left position 0. Actually, this is a default position for the main section, but once we display the sidebar, then we should change again left and width properties. Alright, right now the menu icon is hidden because it is placed inside the sidebar, so let's go ahead and move it to the right. For that, let's set its right position as minus 3.5 rand. For now, it's not visible because it ended up behind the main section, and in order to fix that, we need to assign to the sidebar ZIndex property with value, let's say 100. So now the icon is displayed. And actually I think will be better if we change its background color. Let's make it main BG color. And also I want to make its bottom right corner rounded. For that I'm going to use property called border bottom right radius with the value 1 rem. Alright, now we need to define the styles that we need to add to the elements once we click the icon. And again we need to use change class. Let's start with the sidebar. Select change and then sidebar. Make its left position 0. Also we need transition with left and with the duration 0.2 second. So the sidebar works fine. Next I'm going to take care of the menu icon. Once the sidebar is displayed, I want to move the icon and place it back at the top right corner. So we need change followed by the Hamburger Menu, and we have to make its right position 0. Then again use transition with right property followed by the duration 0.3 second, and here we need to use again delay 0.3 second. Okay, now if I click, everything will work fine. Alright, next we have to take care of the main section. We need to change its left and width properties. So let's select it again with change class name. We need to make its left position 15 viewport width. As for the width, we have to make it 85 viewport width. And finally, let's use transition with the value all and duration 0.2 second. Alright, so as you can see, everything works perfectly, and actually we are almost done with our project. We just need to take care of the drop-down menus. By default, I'm going to hide them. For that, let's assign to sub nav list display none. Then let's go ahead and open script.js file. We need to display the drop-down menus back when we click the list items. You may think that we should select list items and then attach to them event listeners, but we are not going to do that. Instead of attaching event listener to each of the list items, I'm going to use a different way. Let's select nav list itself. Use again query selector method and specify here the class name nav list. Then attach to it event listener with the click event followed by the arrow function. In this case, I'm going to pass here an event object as the parameter. Now we need to create a variable in which we will store the parent element of the clicked element. So let's go ahead and create a variable. I'm going to call it element el. It should be equal to e.target.parent element. Also, let's run to the console. So if I click any of the list items, then we will get a parent element in the console. In our case, it is a link element. So now we have access to the parent element of the clicked item, and actually we can get access to each of the link elements without attaching an event listener to every item. Alright, next we need if statement in which we need to check if the parent element of the clicked item contains the class name navlink. So we need if with the condition el.classList. We need to get access here to the first class, so we need to indicate the index number 0, then it should be equal to navlink. So if this is true, then we need to get access to the sibling element of the link, which is a sub nav list, the drop-down menu. So again, if we click any of those elements, the icon or span element or the arrow, then we will get access to the link element, and after that we have to display the sub nav list, which is a sibling of the link element. Make sense? So we need element dot next element sibling dot class list. Then again we need to use toggle method with the class change. Let's go to style.css file, select sub nav list with the class change. Actually, you need to note that we don't need here this space. Alright, let's assign to it display block. So if I click the items, then the drop-down menus will display. Alright, so when we click the item and display the drop-down, we need to make it active. We have to maintain the different color for the icon. For that, let's go to script.js file and insert here element.classList.toggle, again with the change class name. Then in CSS file, I'm going to duplicate this code, then get rid of the hover and add in front of the navlink class change. Now if I click the items, then they will maintain the color until the drop-down menu is displayed. Alright, the next thing regarding the drop-down menus is to add some transition effect. Now we are using display none and display block, and actually we cannot use transition with this property. So instead of the display, I'm going to use max height and overflow hidden. We need to set max height to 0. Then down below we need max height with value 10 rems. And lastly use transition with max height and with duration 0.5 seconds. So now if I click the items, then drop-down menus will display with a smooth transition. Alright, so we're almost done. The only thing that we have to do is to make those arrows work. Once we display the drop-down menu, we have to rotate arrows by 90 degrees. So we need to select again class name change. And after that we have to select iElement, which should be the immediate last child. For that we need to use one of the CSS combinators, which is expressed by greater than sign. It should be followed by the iElement with pseudo class last child. So we need here transform with the rotation 90 degrees. And also use transition with transform and with the duration 0.5 seconds. Alright, so if we click the item, then the arrow will rotate accordingly. Okay, so we can say that we have finished working on this project. Everything works fine, and the last thing that I want to do is to make it responsive to different screen sizes. Let's go ahead and switch to responsive mode. Actually, we built this project on that screen size, and now I'm going to find the first breakpoint. I think we need to make some changes after 1500 pixels. So let's create a CSS media query. We need @sign media, and we have to specify max width as 1500 pixels. So I'm going to increase the width of the sidebar. So let's go ahead and select it. Make its width 20 viewport width. Also, we need to change left position. Let's make it -20 viewport width. Besides that, we need to select main section with the class change. And we have to set left position as 20 viewport width. And also we need to change width. Let's make it 80 viewport width. Okay, so on the screen size, project looks good. Next we need to make some changes after, I think, 1200 pixels. I'm going to duplicate this entire code and just change the values. We need 1200 pixels. Then we need 25. And as the width, we need here 75. Alright, so the next breakpoint should be 900 pixels. Let's duplicate again the code and change the values. We need 900 pixels. Then I'm going to use here 30. As for the width of the main section, let's make it 70. Besides that, I'm going to decrease the font size of the heading element. So let's go ahead and select it. Alright, let's go ahead and find the next breakpoints. I think it should be 700 pixels. So let's duplicate again the code, change the values. Now I'm going to use 50 everywhere. And besides that, I'm going to hide the heading at all. So let's assign to it display none. Okay, so the last breakpoint is going to be 400 pixels. Let's go ahead and duplicate once again the code. Change the values. We need here 100. As for the width of the main section, it's going to be 0. And also get rid of the heading from here. Alright, so finally we are done. The project is finished. I think it's very nice and hopefully you enjoyed it and learned lots of cool stuff. If you liked this video, then please thumbs up, comment below, subscribe to our channel and click the bell to get notified on coming tutorials. Okay, see you next time.